everyone, Sean here, and welcome to the Mad Podcast. Now, in episode number 4, we have Chris Isbell from Orange Beach, Alabama. Now, he targeted as his first business day nurseries, and he also explains in this episode how he was able to take advantage of some amazing real estate or property deals, as we call them in the UK, and I think you'll find it absolutely fascinating. Now, if you're watching this, please subscribe to this channel below and hit that notification bell so that you get immediate warning of the latest videos in this series. And I hope you enjoy this video. I think you'll find it really amazing. Welcome everyone to this episode of the Mad Podcast, and with me today is special guest Chris Isbell, and Chris is from Orange Beach, Alabama. Hi, Chris.
How you doing, Sean? Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're with us today. So, would you be kind enough just to introduce yourself and perhaps give us a little bit of information about your background and how you started as an entrepreneur?
Sure. So I grew up in a pretty entrepreneurial family, primarily my dad. He was always either coming up with a business or getting into a new business. We tried some multi-level marketing type businesses. Amway, if you've ever heard of Amway, I'm not sure how big that is in the UK, but it's been around for a while. And so I tell people I grew up as an Amway kid. So I was on the road doing meetings with my parents. They had a big yellow Cadillac that I would sleep in the back window before seatbelts were a law, and they'd cart me all over the country. And, you know, one of my favorite trips was what they called a dream weekend. They had it, the Fontainebleau Resort in Miami, Florida, and went down there, and that's where we had a convention where I was able to rub shoulders with some of the super successful people, and their kids at the time. And so I always wanted to, be rich, right? Be successful and make it big. And, we never had a lot of money growing up. So I figured that's what I wanted to do. And I had this goal of being a millionaire by the time I was 30. And so I met my wife when I was 18. We dated for a few years. I got married at 22, and I even told her, I said, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to be rich when I'm 30 years old. Well, we ended up going into finding ourselves doing in Stakeout, a restaurant called Stakeout. They probably don't have them over there, but it's basically like pizza delivery, but for chicken, steak, and burgers. And I worked at this restaurant 70 hours a week, just trying to pay off some debt. My wife ended up coming to work there too. We were married at the time, because she never got to see me. So I was gone all day, 7 days a week. Well, so we worked there for a year, paid off our debt, and I saved up $1,000. $1,000 was the most money I'd ever seen in my whole life. And I said, I want to do something with this $1,000. Don't know what, but I want to invest it in something. Well, I was up late one night, found a guy on TV called Carlton Sheets, and he had this no money down real estate program, right?
I remember, yeah.
Yeah, so I ended up getting the course because it looked like, it didn't look that hard to do. So cracked it open, found a couple of techniques that looked like something that was doable. And while I was out delivering, I found a house that had a for sale sign in the yard, and called up the realtor, made an offer, ended up structuring the deal where I cashed out $4,000 when I bought the house. And I thought, well, this is cool. I just need to keep doing this. And so ended up I bought another house, and then a duplex, and then I bought some trailers, and then I bought a little 12-unit apartment complex, just kind of worked my way up until I was able to quit my delivery driving job. And, that was the start of my real estate career. And from about 2001 to 2008, we were moving real strong. I ended up building that into a $10 million company. I had about 300 rental units. Between apartments and trailers and houses, and I started a construction company and a property management company, and then we were doing great. Built our dream home, vacationing everywhere, and then of course 2008 happened, and the market crashed, and we spent about the next 18 months slowly bleeding out until we completely ran out of money. So we were broke. So it was time to start over. Well, we lived in central Alabama, so I ended up moving down here to the beach in Orange Beach and started over selling door-to-door insurance. Started, clawing our way back, making a little bit more money. Started teamed up with some folks, built an insurance agency over the course of the next several years, and that ended up doing well. That was a $26 million a year insurance company. I ended up selling out in 2017 to get into mergers and acquisitions full time. And I knew there was an opportunity in this space. I knew that there's 80% of businesses that go up for sale don't sell, sometimes more than 80%. Not because the businesses aren't great, it's because there aren't enough buyers. So it's this big ocean of opportunity to be able to buy these places and not enough people to do it. So we entered in this space. I got some partners and we started building Clear Capital, which is the name of our mergers and acquisitions company. So that's kind of a high level track of how we got to where we are now.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think there's so many more sellers than there are buyers. And as the baby boomers retire over the next 5, 10, 15 years, we're going to see a lot more of that. And that divide will increase, I think. So thank you for that. It puts things in context. So we're going to talk about a couple of case studies. So would you like to just let us know? So your first one was, is it daycare centers that you went into?
Yeah, so our strategy was, I don't know if this was the right way to do it or not, but basically we just started approaching all types of businesses. We had narrowed it down to what we call Amazon-proof businesses and recession-resilient businesses. So these are businesses that's going to be hard for Amazon to duplicate and take over an industry that we thought anyway. And secondly, what can make it through a recession? So we had childcare, we had auto repair, we had plumbing, heating and air, pest control, some of those things people would always use, right? And so we ended up mailing out to probably 10 different industries, maybe more, to letters to sell to owners and saying, hey, if you want to have a conversation about selling your business, call me up. Here's my cell phone number. And I got tons of calls. First batch that went out, I got 10% of the mail. I mailed out 500, hoping for a 1% response. Hoping for 5 people to call back, but I ended up getting 50. So we had all these people that called. We had 35 of them send their financial statements, and I honestly had no idea what I was doing. This is just kind of figuring out as we went kind of a thing. But our strategy was whichever business type we could close on first, that was kind of where we would camp out. So if it could have just as easily been, auto repair or heating or plumbing or any of that stuff, but it happened to be childcare. So we closed on our first deal. It's a place called Kids Club in South Georgia. And we purchased that one for, if my numbers are correct, well, it was doing $360,000 a year in revenue, which now we would never buy that business. We just needed our first deal, right? So
Sure.
this
Yeah.
is the one where, we told ourselves anything over 500,000 in annual revenue is where we wanted to park. Well, this one came along, the real estate looked good. So what we did is we ended up putting a contract on the whole thing for $1 million. And that was the real estate plus the business. And I think the real estate, just in round numbers, we paid $650 for that, and then $350 for the business part of it. So, but what we did, and this is through a lot of trial and error and figuring out what worked, a year's worth of making offers and how to structure deals and all this kind of stuff. And finally, I was laying in bed one night and I thought, there's this technique that a lot of business owners use called a sell leaseback, where they'll sell the real estate to an investor and then they'll
That's right.
lease it back. And I said, I wonder if we can do that as an acquisition strategy. Turns out that wasn't anything new. It's done a lot with larger purchases, some of your restaurant chains and franchises and those kinds of things. Well, so we found an investment group that we could flip the property to. So when we closed on this deal, we brought enough cash to the table by flipping the real estate to cover all the cash that we were given to the seller out of the deal. So that was our first deal. Didn't cost us any money to get in it. We took advantage of some opportunities by opening the center longer, offering some different programs to increase revenues, those kinds of things. But as far as the deal structure goes, our goal was to buy it without spending any of our own money. And so that's what we did. So that was our first deal that we did.
And you were able to do that because it had real estate and you did the sale and lease back, is that right?
Yeah. Yes, correct. We leveraged the real estate. So one of the other criteria other than Amazon proof and recession resilient that we look at is, does it have real estate? We really do like the real estate play because that's where a lot of the profit can be when you leverage that real estate.
For sure. So that brings up two questions. One is, does that mean you were then searching for childcare centres that only had real estate?
Yeah, and not that we would discount the ones that don't, but that was our target. So if we came across one, like we bought one center that didn't have real estate, and we were able to structure that deal where we rented the real estate back from the owner, and then she 100% seller financed the business part of it. So that was another no money down deal, but did not include the real estate.
And my next question is what's interesting about the specific business that you bought there, these child centres, is that it's recurring revenue, right? It's recurring revenue day in, day out.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Right. What we loved about it is you've got the same set of customers. If a child care center is licensed for 150 kids, then we have the same 150 customers every week. It's almost like a subscription service. You know, they pay us, we just bill them every week, they pay every week. So we're not having to necessarily go out and get new customers every week, or your sales are pretty consistent and predictable. That's the other thing we liked about it.
It allows you to plan ahead, and as you say, you know what income you have in every single month, which is quite reassuring, isn't it? As opposed to starting from zero every single month. I mean, I think you know, you've chosen a really great niche there, or niche, as we say in the States.
Sure, right, niche if you're in South Alabama. So no, and that's one of the things that was really appealing to us. And so kind of like I did with real estate, where we kind of found a technique or two that worked, we just kind of kept rolling with that. And we just kind of kept repeating the same technique or deal structure over and over again, leveraging that real estate. And it got to the point, you know, where our first deal, we got into that with no money down because we gave the seller the cash that we profited from the real estate sale. However, on our next deal, I got to thinking, you know what, I wonder if we can not give all of the cash to the seller and keep some of it. So our second deal, we cashed out $100,000. We got $1,990,000 basically, $1,990,000 from flipping the real estate. We gave the seller $1,890,000, basically just offered her $100,000 less in cash up front. And then we always have a little bit of seller carry too. So like she financed, for instance, in this deal, $200,000. So the cash we gave her was $100,000 less than what we collected on the real estate. So we actually bought the business and put $100,000 in our bank account at closing by simultaneously selling that real estate to an investment group.
Okay. Well, that's even better then, isn't it? Because now you're in positive cash flow from your second business.
Yes, exactly. So, and you know, we wanted to see how far we could stretch it. So one of our acquisitions, our most profitable, when we bought 3 centers at one time, it was 3 locations from one seller. We put the whole deal together. We ended up cashing out on that one over $600,000 by just giving the seller $600,000 less than what we were able to flip the real estate for between those 3 properties. So, I mean, it's crazy to think that you can buy a business and make money, but that's how we've structured all of our deals.
Now that's interesting. That third one, because that's the most profitable. So it had a certain valuation, the real estate, and I guess they knew that they were getting less. So do we have a motivated seller here? Is that why they were flexible on that?
What we've noticed is when you buy the business and the property together, really what they want is they've got one number they want for all of it, right? And they really don't care how much you pay for the real estate or how much you allocate towards the business. They just want their big number. So she had the number she wanted, and we offered her that number. We allocated X amount to the real estate, X amount to the business. So when you can kind of play with those numbers a little bit, you can get into the real estate for less than what a market value would be. And they're okay with it because they've also got the value of the goodwill there of the business. So, the non-tangibles and the assets of the business. So that's where we're able to go in and get that property for a lot less than say what market value would be to turn around and be able to flip it. So, and obviously the market has to support those numbers, and the business has to be able to support what the rent's going to be on that when back to the investors when you do a sale leaseback.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So do you find that you have to go and work with different investors, or do you just find one and they just say, yeah, I'll keep buying the deals that you supply?
It depends. We'll find, like we found one that said that he would do our first one, but that's all he wanted to do was the first one. So our second one, we needed to go to another group. That particular group did five or six for us, and then they wanted to, because what's crazy is these investors that we sell these to, not only do we make money, have we made money flipping it to them, but then they turn around and put it right back on the market and resell it to say a 1031 buyer, where they're deferring their taxes. Do they have 1031 exchanges or something? Or 1031 in the U.S. is basically where you can sell a property, take the profit, don't touch it, put it in escrow account, and go out and you got 6 months to buy another property and roll that profit into it. And that kicks your tax liability down the road if you just keep rolling it. So there's a lot of what we call 1031 buyers who they've sold a property, they want to save that, they don't want the cash, they want to save the taxes. So they got to identify another property to put it in. So we've got some 1031 buyers that have done that. So they'll turn around and flip it, and the investors that we sold it to, they make a hefty profit. Like for instance, the one we sold and made 600 grand on, for those three, they've already resold two of those, and they've profited over $500,000 reselling those two. So there's a lot of money in this real estate.
Wow, that's amazing, isn't it? That they've sold them on again.
Yes. So what we've done now is actually, we in the beginning, we didn't want to necessarily have to come up with all the capital and all that kind of stuff, but now we've created our own fund where now we can basically be that investment group that goes in. So now we're able to participate in those profits on the other side too.
Yeah, if you do enough deals, then you build up your part, and then you become that person, I guess. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So where are you today? How many businesses have you bought? What kind of revenue have you got? And what are the plans for the future?
So we currently have 8 locations right now. So we're doing, it's between 5 and 6 million a year in total revenue between the 8 centers. We've got 3 that we're about to close on, one in Texas, one in Tennessee, and one in Alabama. That we've identified that we're working towards closing on. Got the contracts done, and pretty much now we're doing the licensing that we got to do and all that for childcare. So that'll give us 11 probably by the end of the first quarter. And then after that, our goal, we'd love to be by the end of the year, buy some multi-sites and be at about 20 locations by the end of this year. And, it's a snowball. The bigger you get, the bigger you can get. So the more leverage, the more clout, the more credibility you have being able to grow larger in larger chunks. So
when you do that, you will at some point be picked up by the private equity groups. Is that your exit plan?
Yes, the exit plan is to build this basket of locations big enough to where, and when I say big enough, it might be 30 locations, 40 locations, somewhere around in there. So by the time we get to that point, we've got our own corporate structure now, our own HR departments, our own, systems and processes. It's been a lot having to, because when we started childcare, we didn't know anything about childcare. I've got 3 kids. I can barely keep them alive as it is. So it's one of those things where, I got into an industry where we didn't know anything about it. But the way we did it, if any of your listeners are wondering, well, how the heck how are you running childcare centers and you don't know anything about childcare?
Yeah.
So it's just about partnering with people that do. So we found people that did know what they were doing, and we partnered with them to come alongside us and kind of help us build out this model. But yeah, the goal is to sell this to private equity group, maybe a national chain, something along those lines, at higher multiples than what we're buying them for. So there's a profit then on the business side.
Yeah, so it's a great, some great case studies there, Chris. Thanks for sharing that. I guess knowing what you know now, starting your M&A journey, would you do anything differently?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a million little things that I would 100% do differently. One of them is I told you we bought that first business. It was under revenue. That's been our hardest business to work with. I mean, unless you want to work in the business, which I did not. I wanted to have other people do it. Unless you want to work in the business, then the more revenue it's doing, typically the easier it is to function and transition, because you've got more to work with. You've got more staff, you've got more people, you've got more customers, you've got more revenue to be able to work with. So I would say, definitely adhere to that over 500,000, over 800,000 a year in turnover if you're able to. And then there's a lot of other things that we totally did wrong that now we know better on. A lot of it has to do with hiring or staffing or, some cost saving things or that kind of thing. But honestly, I don't know if we do them different now, but I don't really regret any of that, because it kind of made us and sharpened us into what we're able to do right now. So
Sure.
So that's probably the biggest thing that I would, there's lots of things I would certainly change, but those again are the things that really helped us improve our own operations.
Yeah, yeah. And what about going into a niche or niche that you don't have any experience in, like you do?
So what I tell people is, if you just get on Google or any kind of search engine, and whatever industry you're looking at, type that in with the word consultant at the end of it. And there's pretty much a consultant for every industry. So it doesn't matter really what you're looking at. There's somebody out there who used to own them, used to maybe manage multiple of them. Now they're retired, and now they're into the consulting field, where they go into these industries and help people do turnaround work, run more efficiently, those kinds of things. All I did is I typed in childcare consultants. About 10 or 15 came up right away. I called through the list, told them what we were doing. Hey, I don't own one yet, but we're looking at buying some, and we got some under contract. Here's our plan. Here's our vision for it. Here's how big we want to get, and we need some help with it. So can we pay you to handle all of our operations with your expertise? We ended up finding a lady that had a team already. She had contacts in the industry. She had worked with 200 centers across the country. She spoke at some of these conferences, childcare conferences across the country. Her resume was phenomenal. So we struck a deal with her, basically said, we'll pay you X amount when we buy it to transition them, and then another X amount per month to continue managing and overseeing the operations. And so she agreed, and that got us through our first probably 4 or 5 locations until we were able to hire our own corporate staff, to which case we transitioned her functions over to our corporate staff. So now they're full-time employees. But that helped us start, because then we're not having to pay somebody, $100,000 a year salary with no revenue. So we started that way.
Yeah, so you just pay them a daily rate. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yep.
I know some entrepreneurs will offer a daily rate plus equity. Did you do that, or did you not?
Did do equity with the consultants. Now, I did do equity with my partners. So whenever I first started our mergers and acquisitions, before we bought our first business, I knew I needed an attorney. I knew I needed an accountant. I needed a marketing guy, and I needed an operations guy. Because all those were things that, I'm good at sales. I'm really good at talking to people, talking them into deal structures, selling our company, telling our story. And that's where I wanted to live. I didn't want to get bogged down in the weeds of paperwork or numbers or any of that stuff. And so I I went out and found partners, people that I already knew in the industries that they were in. My CPA, or actually my marketing guy, I was friends with him for 10 years, brought him on board. He was childhood friends with our CPA, so we brought him on board. I was childhood friends with our attorney, so we brought him on board. And my operations guy was my dad. So, and me and him have worked together for years in insurance and other stuff. So, so I built that team, and they all did get equity share in this because, of course, I didn't want to start paying them. And they've just been phenomenal partners this whole time.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, listen, it's been great speaking with you today, and I really appreciate sharing those case studies. I think really going to be a lot of value to people listening and watching these back. So, Chris, how can people get hold of you?
So email address, probably the best way to get me. Email address is chris@clearcapitalpartners.com. That's capital with an AL at the end. But yeah, shoot me an email. Any questions, any thoughts, anything like that. I'm very happy to reach out to folks, or offer any assistance if they need some help with something.
Okay, well, thanks again, Chris. It was really great speaking with you, and yeah, we'll speak soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Sean.
Bye-bye now. What an amazing entrepreneur Chris is, and I hope you enjoyed some of those real estate deals as much as I did. Now, please hit the subscribe button below and the notification bell, and you'll get the latest releases as they happen. Now, in our next episode is Jonathan J, who has been buying multiple day nurseries. He's building a group of day nursery businesses, and I think you'll find his strategy is pretty amazing. So look forward to seeing you on the next one. Please connect with me on LinkedIn if you haven't done already, and I will speak to you very soon. Bye for now.